Hello, my name is Terry Phillips and I'm a member of the Justice and Peace Commission, and I want to talk about EU regional policy. As someone who was born and brought up and still lives in the north of England, I do feel very strongly about regional development. And there's one way in which I think the EU policy is particularly good, because when an area of the UK wants development funding from the UK government, it's a matter of political lobbying, and if the national government happens to be different from most of the representatives in a particular area, you feel you haven't got so much chance of getting the funding. Whereas when it's done by the EU, it's done on a purely statistical basis. And the idea of what's sometimes called the cohesion fund or the regional fund is to look at regions of Europe rather than see them as regions of a particular country. And so if you have a GDP, a gross domestic product per head in your region, which is less than the EU average, then you're going to get regional funding. And the consequence of this is that although the UK now is a net contributor to the EU, the poorer regions of the UK are actually net beneficiaries. And there are different levels. There's the Objective 1 funding, which most people know about, which is for areas that have less than 75% of the GDP across the Union. And then there are transition regions, which most of these areas have now become, which have between 75% and 90% of the GDP average for the whole Union. Now, for example, in the period 2007 to 2013, the northwest of England shared 990 million, which is a lot of money. And then the programme that was introduced in 2014, which takes us up to 2020, has allocated 910 million for the northwest. And just to give some thoughts about some of there's actually a document which is 15 pages long, which lists all the items in the northwest economy that have had contributions from the EU. So I'm just going to give some that people might know about depending where you live. In Liverpool, for example, a significant funding towards the new John Lennon Airport. And also, and this happens to be the single largest EU investment anywhere, is the Echo Arena, the convention centre that's been built in Liverpool, which received almost 50 million towards the cost. The new cruise liner terminal in Liverpool received 9 million, and St George's Hall, restoration of the frontage of St George's Hall received 3 million. And then there are other areas, obviously it have benefited. In St Helens it benefited from improved rail links with Liverpool, but also a new facade for the Theatre Royal, which if you visited there, it looks very impressive. And various parts of Lancashire, nearly 3 million was given to Blackpool Council for enhancements of the Tower Festival headland. The Lancashire Superfast Broadband received EU funding, the Lancashire Growth Hub, and the Centre for Global Eco-Innovation at the University of Lancaster. In Preston, the city centre is benefiting from a project that will improve the main approaches to the city, known as Fishergate Central Gateway. Warrington has received an allocation of 66.4 million of regional funding and 54.8 million from the European Social Fund to support innovation and small and medium-sized enterprise growth in the Cheshire and Warrington economy. So that's just some examples, and it's really only the tip of the iceberg. So it's something that I'm very keen on, really, this regional funding.